Uranus, the planet of sudden and rapid change, will be entering the sign of Gemini on April 25th, where it will remain until 2033. This will mark a massive global shift over the next 7 years, and we will all see our lives change in really mind-bending ways. As Uranus wraps up its journey through the grounded Earth sign of Taurus, where it's been since 2018, and gets ready to enter the airy, mentally driven sign of Gemini, you're probably already feeling its powerful pull on your mind. I know I am. So if you felt anxious, wired, or mentally overloaded lately, you're not alone. The reality is, as we get ready to embark on this next 7-year cycle, we might feel like our nervous systems are plugged into a high voltage socket. So if you're feeling bombarded by this high frequency energy, don't panic. It's quite normal to feel restless and dysregulated right now. Why? Because Uranus has this tremendous effect on our nervous system. It disrupts it. Whenever this outer planet changes signs, we can expect a life-changing paradigm shift. And we feel this in our bodies and in our nervous systems because it takes time to integrate such enormous energetic shifts that come with Uranus transits. So to really understand what we will all be going through as Uranus journeys through the sign of Gemini, let's break down the Uranian and Gemini archetypes so we can see how they will show up within us all, both personally and collectively. So this is really a monumental time for humanity. And what's going to change in our lives over the next 7 years is what we're going to explore in today's video. Uranus is the planet that frees us from the known. It shakes up and dismantles all that we have known up until a certain point in order to liberate us from past limitations. So because of this, it really serves as a catalyst for sudden, necessary changes that promote spiritual growth. And it does this perhaps more than any other planet. Uranus demands that we achieve individuality, true individuality, by helping us break free from all the old known patterns and deep-seated trauma that we carry around with us, specifically having to do with how we try to conform or fit in with others. So this includes all habitual behaviors that we've developed in order to become what society expects us to be. And we often don't realize that our family of origins and the society that we're born into prescribe a set of rules that we just unconsciously follow. Like literally how we look, how we talk, how we act, what we believe, what we should study, what we should achieve, and even like what we should, aspire to become in our life. And often these conditions placed on us are not ours to begin with. And we lose sight of our authentic self. Who are we without these conditions? Many of us never get to know our unconditioned self until Uranus comes in and activates this need within us, as though it awakens us to something more, something deeper, something more authentic and essential to who we truly are. So when we decide to answer the Uranian impulse, I like to say we awaken to our soul. And inevitably, all the faulty foundations that we've stood on, that we've used to keep us in a certain way of being, that have blocked our authenticity and conditioned us to be someone we're not, are removed through Uranus because they can no longer support us. They can no longer support our soul's growth. So we can think of Uranus really as the archetype of liberation, freeing us from all that we know and all that is familiar. One of the greatest astrologers of all time, Dane Rudyard, once said, "The man who is truly free makes no choices. He does what he must do." And I feel like this sums up the Uranian process perfectly, because as Uranus frees us from what we know, we inevitably are freed from the conditions that have controlled our life. So Uranus is liberating us from all the external conditions that have been bestowed upon us, not only in this life, but also in past lives. So this includes anything or anyone that has conditioned us to believe we are something we are not. So let's say you were born into a family that really couldn't see you or accept you, or even worse, that criticized you and made you feel bad for having the needs and the desires you did. So in order to fit in and be loved and accepted, you adopted the acceptable behaviors that the family conditioned within you. You started to act like someone else, taking on the belief systems of the family rather than your own. And in time, you lost your essential core self in order to mold yourself to the standards of others. So in your adult life, you go on and subconsciously draw people and relationships to you that mirror back to you exactly what you felt in childhood, unlovable and unacceptable as you are. So you continue to try to change yourself even more, trying to become an idealized version of yourself, one that will finally be good enough. And this cycle just continues on and on until we are forced to awaken to our true self. Only then can we attract others to us that can actually see us, that can actually love us and accept us for who we truly are, because we finally see and accept ourselves. We finally let go of who we are not and become who we are. Well, this is what Uranus heals within us. So it's assisting us on this process. It's helping us individuate. It's helping us become psychologically whole, unconditioned, and integrated as a self. So Uranus transits always act as wake-up calls, helping us remember what we suppressed or never accepted within ourselves. Oftentimes, when we awaken through a Uranus transit, or when Uranus changes signs, we naturally want to start rebelling against authority and conformity. We really want to go our own way and start marching to the beat of our own drum. You know, we feel called toward the unfamiliar, and we feel ready to start taking the path less traveled. Now, it might sound scary to embark on this path, to embark on the Uranian journey into the unfamiliar, as we must do through Uranus transits. But let us remember, if we hold on to the current version of ourselves, we will never achieve our full greatness. We will never truly evolve. So if we can predict and control everything in our lives, all the outcomes, all the events, by constantly remaining in the familiar, it's nothing new. It's routine. It's automatic. We've experienced it many times before. So our familiarity becomes our comfort zone, and nothing new grows in a comfort zone. So the purpose of Uranus is to free us from our comfort zones by breaking us out of the old familiar patterns of relating to ourselves, of how we do life. So Uranus says, your future self is calling you. Here is what must change. And if you're not going to change it yourself, I'm going to come in like a lightning bolt and just kind of zap you to force you to change. So sometimes it's like a sudden strike comes in, and it's obviously not comfortable when this happens, but it's necessary. The thing with Uranus, like we must remember, is that it thrives so much off of change that it can be quite sudden and come in like out of nowhere. And like I've been discussing, it's future oriented. So it's always asking us to change something now to get a different future result. It wants to shake up and innovate our current reality structure, asking us to find previously undiscovered ways of relating to ourselves. And then in doing so, it speaks to us really through our higher self or our unconscious mind. Like it releases a flood of information, usually that's been suppressed, that we haven't consciously integrated. And then as a result, we suddenly awaken, we change, we evolve, like snap of the fingers, we're different because of the information that suddenly came in. And when this Uranian stream of information is realized by the conscious mind, it at first sometimes can feel disjointed and chaotic and confusing. It can be really a shock to our nervous system. Again, it disrupts our current state of being. So what we previously thought we knew about ourselves suddenly no longer holds up. Uranus has shown us our false self and shattered our ego identity. And in these moments, we must unlearn what we thought we knew. We must liberate from an old self identity. So how will Uranus free us from the known in the sign of Gemini? So Uranus will be liberating our minds in Gemini. So our brains can start to become our biggest allies rather than our own worst enemy. We'll be breaking free from our own mental prisons. Uranus here in Gemini will assist us in evolving our mind past old limitations. It's going to help us see where negative thinking has been doing us no good. It's going to help us access deeper intuitive knowledge so we can align our left logical brain with something deeper and find our true purpose. And how will it do this? Well, let's imagine that we can become so familiar with how we think on a daily basis that we unconsciously continue to create the same experiences for ourselves over and over again, even if these experiences contradict what we actually want. For example, if we're constantly focusing and thinking about our problems and what we don't like about ourselves or we don't like about our life, we're going to continue to create more of this. Why? Because at a subatomic level, energy always responds to our mindful attention. It responds to our thoughts. That's what makes it become matter. That's what makes it become something. Meaning, nothing really exists until we observe it. This is known as the observer effect. So where our thoughts go, energy flows. So if we're overly familiar with self-defeating thoughts and feelings that just keep us living in a constant state of fear or suffering or stress, what happens? We inadvertently attract more people or situations into our life that are going to mirror right back to us that we're in this state. So even if we don't consciously want to have more suffering in our lives, we don't know any different. So we unconsciously create a reality based on what we know, what we can predict. We may feel more comfortable living in suffering than the alternative because the alternative is unknown. Now, to change our reality, we must first change our minds. By changing our mind, we change our life. And with Uranus in Gemini, that is exactly what we all have the opportunity to do. This is really exciting. So in the airy, mutable sign of Gemini, Uranus will be evolving our brains at an accelerated rate. I mean, this includes not only how we think, but also how we communicate and express ourselves. Because Uranus requires that we're authentic, we will no doubt be becoming more authentic thinkers and more authentic communicators. We are going to feel called to go, to be more curious and begin questioning existing knowledge systems, wanting to seek out new knowledge to replace our old beliefs. And also, the ways we express ourselves are going to be entirely new and surprising. Like, the pain of staying silent will finally outweigh our fear of speaking. And speaking the unspeakable will become much easier. And even dare I say, it will become natural. Can you imagine not fearing the consequences of speaking your truth? Not feeling that you must be agreeable to be accepted by others. Well, this is the exciting shift we are making. We are going to become unapologetic truth tellers. I'm excited about, I have to say. So in fact, because Gemini is the sign of communication, we can really expect that the ways we're sharing information are going to look radically different by the end of this 7-year transit. I mean, this will show up in areas of social media, publishing. We're also going to say, we should expect rapid advancements in AI. Also, transportation, specifically air travel, much faster air travel, jets that can get us across the world in 30 minutes. I mean, massive breakthroughs in space exploration and media, technological advancements that honestly we can't even begin to comprehend with our current thinking and the limitations of how we think right now. The next 7 years is going to completely transform the way we learn, the way we process information, the way we connect to one another globally, and the way we connect to the universe at large. Our minds will be opened and expanding beyond what we can currently even perceive as possible. And why is this? Because, like I already mentioned, Uranus frees us from the known. I mean, really important to grasp that. And Gemini is all about how we gather, how we process, and how we relay information. That is how we communicate information. It does this in order to make sense of the world. So the ways in which we learn and communicate are going to be altered in such huge ways as Uranus shakes up all our old mental patterns and liberates us from mental stagnation. I mean, really, it will liberate us from anything that limits our learning and thinking and processing mind. So this is going to be because in Gemini, Uranus is going to have a major impact on our brain function. Literally, it will be rewiring the neural pathways in our brains and awakening us to new ways of thinking and perceiving reality. It will do so by affecting the structure of our brains on a cellular level, helping our neurons form new connections. Gemini on its own has an effect on dendrites in our brains. And with Uranus here, it's going to act as a catalyst, helping us form new dendrites in an accelerated way, that's going to encourage more complex thinking skills, decision-making skills. Our minds will be so active, we're going to have no choice to continually want and need and feel compelled to seek out new knowledge. And there is going to be a real opportunity for creative and intellectual breakthroughs. I mean, so because this energy is so much about the mind, it's going to maybe sometimes speed up our minds in such a way that we feel so much excess mental chatter that we really have to remember to slow down our thoughts at times and start learning the difference between reacting and responding, knowing when to speak and when not to, We will be maturing our left logical brain in a way we probably haven't our entire lives. So Uranus moves very slowly, well, not very. It moves slowly around the zodiac. It spends about 7 to 8 years in each sign. So it takes 84 years to complete its entire journey around the sun, its orbit around the sun, about the span of a human life. So it briefly entered Gemini back in July of 2025, only to retrograde back into Taurus in November. And before that, so it's been in Taurus since 2018, but before that, it hasn't been in Gemini since the 1940s, which was a time of technological advancement, like the birth of computing, literally. So this April, it makes its return to Gemini, and it's going to be there till 2033. So think back to 2018 and consider all that has changed for you while Uranus has been in Taurus. This helps us get an idea of how powerful Uranus can be. We've been learning to give our individuality value, to find self-worth and self-value through our own unique resources. And this has resulted in building a lot of self-reliance and self-sustainment. Like, ask yourself how the need to rely on yourself based on what you value and what is most important to you has really manifested in your life over the last 7 years. Have you found yourself facing great losses, but also great gains, like relationships ending and new ones beginning that are much more reflective of what you value? Not only within yourself, but also what you value in another, in a partnership, in a friendship. Have you developed skills over the last 7 years that just feed your soul in a way you could not have previously imagined possible? Have you changed your work or career and found yourself being called to do something that feels much more authentic and suited to your personality and your inner nature? I know we have all gone through periods of time where we feel grief, maybe even depression over these last 7 years. And, that's been because we've been trying to recover our true value system. And in that process, we've had to let go of a lot. So there's been periods of time where we've struggled to find fulfillment, happiness, We've maybe even had to face issues with our physical and mental health. I mean, we might have made changes regarding how we treat our bodies, because Taurus is so much about the physical body, maybe changed how we eat, how we exercise, maybe even eliminated certain addictions like drug or alcohol abuse. I mean, I'm hoping we've all started to value ourselves more, at least enough to treat ourselves better. And now that Uranus is in its last leg of Taurus, about to move to Gemini, we might notice that we're having to deal with more things coming in from our past, like people or situations coming back into our lives that stir up old familiar feelings of insecurity and make us question our self-worth all over again, as though we're being thrown back into old cycles. So pay attention to how you are treating yourself when things aren't really going your way, or you feel like people are mistreating you, or you're being disappointed by people, or it seems that others aren't able to see your worth right now. You may find that you're responding to these circumstances, though, very differently than how you used to, because you have grown and you have matured. So even though these events might still feel painful and upsetting, they're happening to finally close out these old timelines and release us once and for all from their grips. Like, we're finally letting go of what no longer serves us. Once we understand that we can feel worthy and valuable without needing anyone else to tell us so, we can truly heal. So this changes how we feel. It changes how we feel about ourselves. I want to call this heart coherence, okay? And this prepares us for Uranus and Gemini, which will be changing how we think. So I want to call that brain coherence. I'd really like to think by the end of this next Uranian chapter, this next cycle in Gemini, that we're going to have mastered and kind of harmonized our heart-brain coherence. So really think of it, when the heart and the brain work together as a team, we are kind of unstoppable because we increase our health and happiness in so many beautiful ways. But when they're disconnected, it can cause all sorts of issues. So I'm going to leave that to another video, but let's get back on track. So as Uranus leaves the earthy, grounded sign of Taurus, you may be noticing that you're already feeling like your thoughts are speeding up, they're racing out of control. Perhaps you don't feel as grounded or connected to your body in the way you would like. You might be having difficulty like sleeping or feeling like you're constantly stuck in a state of worry, or you're mentally obsessing about everything. So you might feel like you're just living in your mind right now rather than your body as we undergo this shift. So at this time, it's so important that we develop grounding techniques, such as exercising or meditation or journaling or doing anything that slows us down and brings us back into our body. I mentioned earlier that Uranus disrupts our nervous system. So the reason for this is that it activates and it accelerates our sympathetic nervous system, which is also known as the fight or flight state. And the sympathetic state is activated through our autonomic nervous system, which keeps us in this highly focused, stressed, overly stimulated state of being. Like we're always anticipating danger, or we're thinking something bad is going to happen, so we have to be in such high alert. So the more we're in this state, the less we feel connected to ourselves, the less we feel connected to our bodies. In fact, sometimes we just don't even know what we feel because we're not feeling. The more we're, because we're living in our minds, we're fretting and we're stewing and we're constantly worrying and anticipation of negative outcomes. So our relaxed state is known as the rest and digest state, which is brought on by the parasympathetic nervous system. This is our calm and restorative state, which is essential to our overall health and well-being. We cannot live in a constant sympathetic fight or flight state because it triggers the production of cortisol, which releases into our bloodstream. And this is the stress hormone that over time can really wreak havoc on our health. So we have to pay attention as we undergo this shift. We need to do whatever we can to calm our nervous systems and stay connected to our bodies, even when so much energy is concentrated in our mind. So all this mental stimulation we're gonna be feeling can sometimes also be very chaotic. It can feel erratic. It's very airy, as though it's not of this earth, and so it can be confusing. So we forget to take care of our physical vessel. We're just trying to figure it all out in the mind. We start feeling anxious and restless, and then we start to live in fight or flight. So one of the easiest ways to reset our energy and come back to ourselves is to utilize breathwork techniques. That helps us to calm and regulate our nervous system. This is free and it's available to all. So look it up and teach yourself how to do breathing exercises. I still have started doing this recently, and it's really helping me come back to my body and feel more grounded. Another important thing to remember right now is that we must have healthy boundaries to protect our internal peace. We always have the right to choose peace over people or any situation that may cause us distress. So knowing when your internal peace barometer is going to be tested and perhaps refraining from anything or anyone that disrupts this right now is perfectly okay. We have to take care of ourselves so we can stay sane, honestly. So I want to wrap it up here. I think I'm going to do more videos talking about the social and historical implications of Uranus and Gemini, because there's so much to cover. And so I want to leave it here. I'll leave you with this information, and I really hope it will help you better navigate all these changes that are taking place. And I hope you feel better prepared to not only handle, but to also embrace this upcoming energetic shift. It's an exciting time. So goodbye for now.